I do it under 2.5 hours. 3.5. Anybody did Parayana of Sundarkand? अरे वाह. रामचरितमानस की वाल्मीकि रामायण? वाल्मीकि. रामचरितमानस. आप भी? बढ़िया. Good. I appreciate. If your life was on a post, you would have had my thumbs up with a love sign on it. Okay, let us begin today's session. I was expecting that Amma who stood with an objection when I said that Indian independence, the land has gotten its freedom, but the civilization and the culture is yet to find its freedom. Where I said to wake up people, I said India got its freedom but not Hindus. So though she is not here, but I will continue with that topic for the day. So let us begin with the Shanti Mantra. Om Sahanavavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Sahavidyankaravavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. Cheta, there is still some resound. Is there anybody who has not grown up in India? Because suddenly to connect with those who have not grown up in India suddenly becomes a little more challenging. A challenge accepted. I just want to know if there is anybody. Okay. Growing up in India, there is always this feel where we finally end up being a product who expresses as a community absence of enough pride in being who we are culturally. In as simple as I wanted to bring that to your attention as coordinator for last session, is those at least when they are going on stage should have some bindi on their forehead. That the moment you wear jeans, you take away because it doesn't go with the attire. That's just one example. I can give several such examples where somehow we end up being those that sometimes do practice what we call as Hindu practices, but then very apologetically we conduct our life. Why is that mindset? Where have we picked up these practices, these way of life? So when we go back into our civilizational aspects, a lot of history has to be understood. Are you ready for that journey? So I have a couple of questions for you, more than couple. India got its freedom after how many years of oppressive, enslaved environment? A little louder. 200 years. Are you happy with that answer? Oh, you are not? Okay. Why are you not happy?
I think still we are oppressed. Many powers are there.
No, the question was how many years of enslaved, oppressive environment before India got its independence? She said 200 years. So the question is 200 the right answer or?
Much more, I think even Mughals was there.
That also has to be included, Kadamma. So Mughals were just one of the dynasties that were of the Islamic origin that ruled. There have been six more lineages or dynasties that have ruled. So when you include all of them, it's about roughly 800 to 850 years. After about 850 years, the first point that I would like to bring upon is most of us have grown on a historical reference where we are taught Mughal history and the British history quite extensively, but prior to 750 ADE, not much has been taught to us as a relevance. How many of you have heard of a king called Lalitaditya? I specifically picked that example because most of us would not have heard about it. Okay, you?
I heard it.
Okay. Where was he a king of? Pakka? Confident?
Not exactly the
Lock kar liya jaye? Yes, he was the king of Kashmir who ruled from all the way from west of Tehran down to the Orissa. Quite a prolific king that he was. He was also known as Muktapida, the one who gave freedom from oppression. Therefore, he was also known as Muktapida. Do you know the longest dynasty that ruled post-Vedic period in India? Maurya? No. Chalukya is close by, but not like the other one. It is a Chola. The Chola kings ruled quite extensively. Now, the reason I am asking these questions, okay, one more question, interesting question. When was the first ghar wapsi of somebody who was converted into Islam, reconverted back into Hinduism? When do you trace it back? I will give you a hint. With them started a great dynasty and an empire, which most of you know, that empire. Vijayanagara kingdom, where the first establishment was done by Harihara and Bukkaraya. Both of them were forcefully converted into Islam, but then they escaped from there, came down to Hampi area, where at that time Swami Vidyaranya Maharaj, who later became the Sringeri Peethadipati, he was the first one who said reconvert. Just on a funny note, as a Yuva Kendra member, we all went to Puja Gurudev, Swami Chinmayanandji, and said, how does one reconvert? Is there a process? Is there a method? Is there a mantra? Reconvert from Christianity to Hinduism? Please tell us. We would like to do something about it. Known for his quick wit, Puja Gurudev, it took me about a week for it to be like sinking in. When it did hit, I laughed for so long that even now when I think of it, under this mask I am like gleefully smiling. He said, oh, there is no mantra, but please do give them a towel. They are reconverted. And the moment I heard that and I understood it finally, then I was like, oh my goodness, this is hilarious. Do you know why he said take a towel? To convert them to Christianity is to dip them in the water. When they come out, give them a towel, wipe them out, and then they're back Hindu. Now, why do we not know this history? Because we were never taught. We never grew up learning our history. So, most of us feel that we have lived a pretty oppressed civilization and often been told that you have been oppressed because you are being a Hindu. Hindu is supposed to be a non-violent one. Seriously? Show me one God who doesn't have a weapon in his hand. When he is giving Abhaya Hasta in one hand, what does his left hand have? That Bhaiya, this is not an empty promise, I can vouch for it and establish that peace for you, if need be. And our ancestors have been proof for that. When India got its independence, there was a transfer of power from the British to the then existing party, which was the majority, and in 1947, August 15th, India was declared independent. That is what we all know, right? But when it was declared independent, the British divided India furthermore. What is the division that I am talking about? That is the only thing that we remember. That there is East Pakistan, West Pakistan and India. No. Please add this part of history into your conscience. The British declared 565 princely states independent. It took Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel, then the Home Minister, to run around and bring them back under one nation, United Nation of India. Under one nation, it took him 4 years. Though I would say technically it's only about 2 years ago, the final piece came to be called as India. Which part I am talking about? The Kashmir part. 2 pieces. POK and Aksai Chin. That okay, that's a different story altogether. This was being a part of India, had its own parliament, constitution, prime minister and all the shenanigans. There was a letter document that all these princely states signed. Document of accession. Lock it. Document of accession. This document of accession was signed by all these states, all these kingdoms. There were few of them that refused. One of them was Kerala as well, because Kerala had its own ports, its own economy, its own industries. It could declare itself as its own independent country. But then the letter of accession, the document of accession very clearly insisted. Okay, one more point. Of these 565 plus states, kingdoms, do you know how many of them were owned or run by Hindu kings with Hindu principalities? Just a guess. 300, 100, 400. About 540 plus were in the Hindu hand. That itself should give us a sense of pride, that in spite of this oppressive rule, majority of it, 540 plus kingdoms, were ruled by Hindu on a Hindu population. Very few were with the, I am not putting the Sikh run kingdoms as separate, I am including them also into the same fold. There are very few, and of those few, there were 2 Muslim kings and 1 Hindu king who refused to join. One was, of course, what you already named, is the Nizam of Hyderabad, and the second one, no, Kerala, he signed. Junagadh and Kashmir. And all these 3 states, the population was predominantly Hindu, but the Muslim king wanted to be a part of Pakistan. Now imagine sudden small pocket of Hyderabad as an annexure for, it would be a chaos. There was already a chaos of having a grand road connecting East Pakistan and West Pakistan. Thankfully, it did not happen. Did you know that the Indian government was being compelled to draw a wide road passage to East Pakistan and West Pakistan? Horrifying. So Junagadh and Hyderabad, a swift action was taken, and they were given, the kings were given enough time, and they both went into Pakistan to settle. Raja Hari Singh, he said, I will have my independent country, landlocked. 1947, August 15th, India got its independence. 1948, in February, Pakistan attacked Jammu Kashmir. Do you know the irony of this, the funny irony of this whole thing? That 50 plus crores were given, again compelled by Mahatma Gandhi ji to be given to Pakistan as a remuneration. They used that 50 crores into this army to attack Kashmir. And then Raja Hari Singh came running to Vallabhbhai Patel seeking some kind of a protection. He said, "Mane koi nahi khabar, like I don't know. You are an independent country, I cannot get into your sovereign state unless you sign the document of accession." So he signed the document of accession, and if by then Nehru had not gone into the UN, up until Lahore would have been in India. Indian forces had already reached to that point, about 10 kilometers or 12 kilometers from Lahore. But anyway, the point that I was trying to make is, the letter of the document of accession, if you go research .gov.in in their libraries, when you go research, it clearly states that the promise that the Indian government made to all these princely states is to practice their freedom to practice their religion and to connect to their civilizational roots and to propagate them, is one integral part. But then in the constitution that was provided by a group of people, of which the main person who wrote the constitution, compiled it, is B.N. Rao. Ambedkar happened to be the chairperson from the Indian government, chairing that, sponsoring it, being a liaison, but it was done by B.N. Rao. And it was presented. In that, there is an article that was added, Article 25, which gives all the minorities, specifically the Christian and Muslim, to propagate, promote and proselytize but the Hindus are not. And in return, what has happened is the Endowment Board Act. The effect of it I will tell you first, then I will tell you the cause of it, then you will be able to relate better. Whenever we talk about good things happening in India, say for example, free food given to anybody that comes, our mind says, we often told, the Sardarjis, they do an amazing langar. Have you gone to Gurudwara for a langar? Amazing food, fresh food, and chalta rehta hai kitchen, like it is always there on. Grassroots activities of education, healthcare, women welfare and others, we attribute it to the church. So many of us Hindus at a coffee table, we bash Hinduism saying, what has a Hindu done to his own fellow Hindu people? We didn't realize as to why we are being incapacitated to do it. The reason being, most of our religious organization, the way we designed our cities, when the kingdoms were established, when our cities were established, it was around a water source, and the primary central point, the focal point would have been a temple complex. How many of you have been to Sri Rangam? So Sri Rangam has 7 layers. Rest of the temples have 5 layers minimum. Can you reduce the volume, please? Not my volume, your volume. 5. And around that there were segments. In northeastern side, in southwestern side, Vastu was applied and several segments were created. And to maintain these independent of the king, each temple was given its own several acreage on which they could raise cows, have their own infrastructure of agriculture through which they support the temple, so that there is no infringement of any kind to run the temple. Right? Now in independent India, who owns, who runs, who is supposed to maintain that temple? Say that again? No, but now who is it that is doing it? Would have, could have, should have is different. What is happening right now is the question. So please don't change my question paper, stick to the question paper. State or federal, both of them have their hand and they are taking care of it. Which means all of the hundi, all of the collection, all of the endowment that is donated to these different temples, who is getting it? The government, whether it is state or federal, state or central, because there are some which are done by the centers, there are some which are done by the state. Do you know how much to a tune of money we are talking about on an annual basis? Let us take Venkanna. Tirupati, what I mean is, because every state has something very prominent. You go to Orissa, it is Jagannath. You go to Maharashtra, there are 8 different Vinayaka temples, like Ganesh temples. One of them being in Maharashtra, in Bombay itself, is Siddhi Vinayak. In Kerala it is Padmanabha, Guruvayur and Ayyappa. Very prominent. From Kashmir to Kanyakumari, from Gujarat to Assam, all these several temples have been churning out a lot of money. When you go to the temple, does it feel clean? The only pocket of temple system where I found cleanliness is, because I travel extensively when I go to India, is in Karnataka. Yes, Dakshina and Konkana Karnataka, you will find a very clean system. I can show you otherwise also in Kerala. But I attribute it to not the temple, but it is the thick population density. Therefore, there is a lot of things that happen there. So temples are not maintained, temples are not clean, the temples are not refurbished, temples are not reconstructed properly. And even if reconstructed, there is a modernization element rather than traditional element. What happens to all that money that comes? Amayantu sarvata swaha. All of it has been distributed amongst the system. Adversely, there has been other effects as well. These lands which I was talking about, where the temple could run its own system without an infringement of the king or anybody else, what happened to those lands? It is being given, leased out to build churches, mosques, madrasas, educational institutions and hospitals. And you would be surprised, it is leased out at 1 rupee 50 paisa or 2 rupee 50 paisa for those thousands of acres. Whose land it is? Like I'll tell you, I've lived in Vijayawada for a long time, right? Vijayawada, the main temple is Durga Devi, Kanaka Durga Devi, one of the Devi Kshetras, Shakti Pitas. She has several thousands of acres. But all of those thousands of acres has been given to who? I am being very, very upfront and into the face telling, to the Christian churches. On lease for 99 years. Huh? Who gave to what? The government.
Does the money from the churches and mosques go to the government too, or does it?
Haha, that's a good question. From the churches and mosques, do the funds go to the government? No. Do you understand? No, we are the only dumb idiots who have been sitting quiet while this has been happening, not being aware that this is what has been happening. So therefore, I was speaking about secularism last time, because what we understand of secularism is nonsense. Am I getting across? Of all these funds, a certain portion of it is spent on the Muslims and Christians for their yatra to Makkah and Medina. to Jerusalem.
And still they'll get lot of, in minority name they'll get more money.
No, that is a minority commission, is a different ball game. I'll tell about that later. I'm talking about the temple funds. Indian government is the only government that has an infrastructure and edifice of residential quarters, hospitals, food canteens around Makkah and Medina, so that it can subsidize for these people to go, with doctors readily available to take care of them. And where is that money coming from? Where is that subsidization being coming from? From the temple fund. I mentioned about the Article 25, so you will have to research on that.
So the people in power who facilitate this, why do they do this? Do they get like a kickback from these other religious organizations, corruption? Is it because of that?
They have definitely some invested returns. It is called the vote bank. That when you do this, that particular vote bank will vote for you. The Muslim vote bank, the Christian vote bank, the Dalit vote bank. And Hinduism, we have not paid attention, we'll keep voting to them. Am I getting across?
Is there any effort to undo that?
This is the effort. First step is to be aware of what is happening. How many of us were aware of it? In 1947, this is 2020. How many years have passed by? 74 years. For the last 74 years, it has been. Have you seen a sugarcane juicing center? Where they, especially in India, where they put that first round, take it out, bend it into half, second round, then pull it down, put some lemon and ginger, and then fold it into half. Earlier it was lengthwise, now it is widthwise, and then push it again. Then the fifth round, while it is going in, they squeeze and turn it. By the time it is thrown out, even a cow will smell and get away because there is nothing in it. That is how for the last 74 years we are, as a community. When did I realize it personally? My personal story. In 98, I went on a Padayatra across entire southern part, predominantly in Tamil Nadu. After 10-11 days of my Padayatra, I fell into a pattern. The best way was to find the temple in that particular village or that city, because the temple has water source. So I can draw water, bathe, go into the temple, because I had a small bag with extra piece of cloth and a danda. Other than that, I had absolutely nothing on me. So I would freshen up, go into the temple, and during the puja time, I would also sit and chant along with the priests, and then come out, walk into the streets, ask for food, beg for food, wherever I get, and I would have a limitation of 5 houses only to ask. If within those 5 houses I don't get, that meal is gone. So I had some rules for myself. So many of the temples, the priest would be happy that somebody else has come in who is chanting at their pace with that diction, with proper diction and proper pronunciation. As soon as the puja is done, arati is done, they say, Ninga nikkungo. You stand, you wait. And then they would take me to their house and give me the prasad or whatever that they can afford, they would feed. Many temples that was the norm. Once around Chidambaram or so, between Chidambaram and Vaidishwaran, it was rainy season. After the Navaratris, it was raining, and my chappal got stolen, and my size chappal, getting it back is something very difficult in India. Size 12 है मेरा, तो मिलना मुश्किल है. तो I was walking barefoot, and it was raining, so I didn't know what was under that puddle or water, so sometimes lacerated and things. I fell sick. So one of the small temples between these 2 points, I took a shower, went inside, chanted along, and I must have passed out or I must have slept. So the pujari saw that I was with high fever, and luckily in that temple complex there were these Ayyappa Diksha people. One of them happened to be a medical representative, and he brought in some medicines, antibiotic course, and I had to spend about 4 or 5 days there. So at that time is when that priest opened up, especially during the night times, while recovering in that temple complex. We would walk, and he would explain that for last 7 to 8 years he has not received a pay. And the endowment officer gives 2 bananas. Do you know there is a measure for flowers? Do you know what do you call that measure? That measure from here to here, not my hand, that lady's hand. That much of flowers, 1 packet of milk as Abhisheka. Beyond that, there was no pay given. You have 3 kids, how are you running? I said, whenever whatever devotee gives in my hand, so that is what I have been maintaining. That is when I started going to each temple, trying to inquire from the priest itself. Lucky for me that I could speak a little bit of Tuta Futa Tamil in Tamil Nadu, a little bit of Kannada in Karnataka, a little bit of Malayalam in. So when I speak with the priests, they tell that they have not been paid. And even if paid, it is about 1,000, 1,500, even to this day. Now if a priest is earning 1,500 rupees per month, where he has to maintain a family of 5 or 6, do you think seeing that kind of abject poverty, their children would want to go back to Vedic Pathshala, to become a priest as a profession? See, in this country, especially in Texas, especially in Dallas, almost every strip mall, there is a temple that is coming up, right? So many people say, Swamiji, this is all private, they are running private temples like this. क्यों भाई, तुम्हें क्यों जलन हो रही है? At least this way, Bhagwan is the one that is taking Sharanagati, and Bhagwan is giving. Let him make. in abject poverty. Okay, when the temple falls, the walls fall, the brick falls, the light doesn't work, who fixes it? If the government is taking everything, shouldn't the government be putting? Now, in the name of modernization and expansion, say for example, I am taking Odisha, Jagannath Puri, the Jagannath temple, at least about so far what I have seen, 400 to 700-year-old mathas have been broken by the existing government and sold. पता था आपको? So the point that I am trying to make is, yes, India has become free. When will a Hindu mind become free? Am I getting across? I mean, this is the main crux of it. There are many more intermediary steps that have been acting against. Because last 70 years, what has happened in the name of promoting Hinduism, they'll say, we are promoting Sanskritam. Kitna kiya? God only knows. So therefore, when we talk about revival of a civilization, it becomes your and my responsibility that when we go to those tirtha kshetras, become more active, become more participative. Otherwise, it has become a fashion to say, oh, the priest asks for money. Have you ever paused to ask a question, why is the priest asking for money? Am I getting across?
They built that with all the donations. So what they're doing at this point is, so the government did not do anything about building it. So what's happening today is the revenues from whatever the temple is generating is government is taking that.
Now, when you say secular, shouldn't it be, even with the broken meaning of whatever that is today, shouldn't it be equally applicable all across the segment? Either take all of the institutions and do the same, that will be like the Indian crab mentality. If one is going up, the rest of them pull down, right? Or the second is liberate, give the actual freedom. Not knowing this, when we talk bad about our own culture, our own civilization, our own systems, saying, oh, India is bad, our religion is bad, our temples are bad. Have you heard such statements? All of that, including. It is because the system is set up to be against. So first thing is, please do research, study on this. Second, stop bashing. Don't turn around to be a self goal. Do you know what is the worst thing in football? The actual football, not the foot-long ball. Is the player of my team turns around and kicks a goal in my own goal post. That is what we do as Hindus. What do you call them? Liberal Hindu mindset. To hit a self goal. The more vocally you criticize, the more liberal you are. So stop hitting self goal. First is educate, research, know the facts. Second, stop hitting self goal. Third, become active. When you go to a temple, like most of the temples that I visit, from the cleaning group of people to the priest, I spend at least 5-10 minutes with each one of them. That of those temples, when I visit them regularly, they know me there. Not because I want some kind of perks of, squeezing between the line. No, not for that. In my whole life, I must have gone 4 times or 5 times to Tirupati so far. I refuse to go in a paid. I refuse to go in a VIP. I refuse to go when somebody says, I know of somebody that will take you there. Between me and God, who the heck are these people? It is my connection with Him. He will take care. Am I getting across? Talk to them. Involve with them. Know them. Support them. See, most of the pujas, most of the festivals that which we do here in Saket, I can do it, the brahmacharis, we can do it, together we can do and be done. But most of the time I would love to involve a priest. Why? That's their livelihood. Am I getting across? Not understanding the systems. Shraddha, why feed somebody? I went and fed something else or somewhere else. Do that also. Don't invent a new wheel against the tradition. If you do want to, do that also. But our buddhi somewhere is conked off, wherein we say, instead of wasting milk on Shivalinga, I'll donate that milk for. There are so many ways where it is being wasted. Okay, that is not to justify. I mean, I would agree of that concept if that was the last packet of milk on Shivalinga. Last packet of milk on the surface of earth which is being, give it to a baby. I would also say. Do this also and do that also. Who is stopping you? But somehow it feels justified that I throw away the tradition in the claim of modernity to say that now I am justified to be called as a Hindu, modern Hindu. Do you understand where we are falling trap? I'll stop here. Hope the point is conveyed. And the solution which I have said, so that there is disparity created without solutions, and there is a frustration. I said, know, research, then don't hit a self goal. Catch yourself when you are criticizing. Is it even justified to criticize? We may not know. Without knowing those facts, just criticizing doesn't make sense. Then go back, connect, be there as a help and support. Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha.